We've just popped into this bush block, which is not far away from the farm. And I just wanted to come here and look at what type of bush, native indigenous bush, is supposed to be in our block of land. We have a farm at 6 acres. That's what Casavella Homa is all about. Although we've only really been foraging mushrooms so far on YouTube. But it's 6 acres of, let's say, kind of degraded sheep paddock. So it's mostly pasture. All of these guys were removed well over 150 years ago. It's been grazed by sheep for generations. The trees that are on it are all mostly weed species. Hawthorn, there was some willows down in the creek as well. We've had those removed. What we're trying to do with the farm is not only make it a productive, self-sufficient as much as possible farm where we produce our own food, we grow of our vegetables and our fruit and raise animals, but also we return some of this really important biodiversity and indigenous species that were here. So I've come here just to have a little bit of a look, just to remind us of similar types of ecological vegetation classes that we would have ideally at our place. So we've got a candlebark in the valleys around here and in some of the not so much wetter spots, but there's a eucalyptus called a manigum. There's stringy barks, there's peppermints, there's these medium tree covers, which is silver wattles and black wattles. There's some ground cover, there's poa, there's some lomandra. So there's a lot of species here that we've been planting on the farm at Casavella Homa to return what was once there before it was removed for grazing purposes. And the reason for that is that we want to return that biodiversity, we want to return the ecological value, the habitat for the insects, the reptiles, the birds, ideally the mammals as well, and add to those habitat corridors on all these little farms around here so that all these different species can kind of utilise those little bits of bush. So this is not even a really good representation of what was once here, because this is all coppice regrowth of generations of being abused and cut down for firewood. But what we want to do is bring some of this back to our block of land at Casavella Homa. So let's go on to the farm and let's have a look and see what we're doing in terms of our revegetation efforts. So we're now on the block, Casavella Homa farm. And yeah, so this is what we have is 6 acres of degraded sheep paddock. And you can see here, this is a really old willow, a salix, a willow tree that we've had all these chopped out. They were direct injected to die in situ. And the reason for that is because when you chop down a willow tree, every branch that breaks off will grow a brand new tree. And what willows do is they clog up waterways. So their root system becomes this spongy mat and it just blocks up waterways. And that's what's kind of choked up this creek. Very difficult to believe, but this is actually called Joey Creek. This did used to be a creek, and it's completely clogged up now. So what you can see that cutting line there where it's been cut and then direct injected with I believe Roundup. Not the best thing in the world, but that's what they use to kill these guys. So we've got rid of all those old willow trees, which is a great start. And then you can see around here, all these little plastic things here, trees and shrubs, indigenous trees and shrub species that have been planted to bring back the habitat for all those macroinvertebrates and insects and birds and mammals and reptiles and all those different species, actually to repair the habitat values here, which will benefit our farm in the long run. That's proven to be beneficial. I don't know whether or not the mic is picking up the frogs, but it's really lovely to hear the frogs have come back now that we've had a little bit of rain. We had a very, very dry summer, and we've just starting to get a little bit of rain back now, which is absolutely lovely at the end of winter. So what our job is today is that with the oncoming spring, and we've had a bit of rain, what traditionally happens is all the grass and the weed species will grow really, really quickly, and they will grow over the top of whatever re-veg has survived this summer and into this winter. So we've got a new toy that I'll show you later, that a big brush cutter to hack through all this really heavy stuff and give these different trees and shrubs, these indigenous trees and shrubs, the best chance of surviving through spring, thriving, getting above that weed line and getting through summer. That's basically what we're trying to do here. So, but first off we want to do is actually just check a whole bunch of these trees and shrubs that have been planted and see what survived and what hasn't. And that's the first job we've got. So basically our job today, watch out, it's a little bit muddy here, is to go through every single one of these, inspect, and if there's no survivor in there, these have got to come up so that we can use this gear for another tree or shrub. That one's dead too. Not a lot of survivors getting through that really hard summer that we just had, which you wouldn't know right now because it's about 5 degrees Celsius and it's been raining for the last 24 hours. Here, if we come and have a look at this, we've got a tea tree in here, and this is excellent because this is going to be this will be a beautiful big tea tree eventually, but we've got a survivor there, which is great. And that's what today's job is really about, is finding the survivors, slashing around them where needed, so that they've got the best chance to survive this spring.
Oh, sadly that is very dead. As is that one.
And of course, we've picked the most perfect windy day to be dealing with tree guards that are going to blow away in the wind. Classic us.
But at least the soil's wet to be able to pull them out.
Yeah. Nice to hear the frogs.
It is nice to hear the frogs. Haven't heard them for a while.
No, just another dead plant with some weeds in it.
Hey, we've got one in here that's alive.
Awesome, finally. Well, that's a tree everlasting, that's great. Hopefully that one survives spring and summer. I don't know if you can hear the frogs here. They sound great. There are a lot of survivors here, but we've also got a bit of a weird problem at the moment with kangaroos eating the growth of quite a few species and just nibbling them because they're so desperate for food. So things that we are having surviving are getting hammered by the kangaroos, which is very frustrating. But we do have a couple of winners, like this guy here, which I believe is a swamp gum. So at least the kangaroos aren't eating the eucalyptus, which is great because swamp gums will provide lots of habitat. But as you can see, we have got a lot to look through and sink our teeth in today. It's not the most exciting or glamorous task, but
needs to be done.
Has to be done, and hopefully we can turn this creek into a little patch of bush and provide some really great habitat for all the native species. But only time will tell. One good thing about having a farm is that you do get to use a lot of different toys. As Lisa likes to say, I'm getting a new toy. It's actually a tool for a job, but this is the new toy slash tool. Comes with a harness and it's got metal blades there, so I can cut through some of the really heavy stuff that we've got a bit of an issue here. Not that stuff there, that's Lemandra, that's Juncus, that's all good stuff. But there's lots of blackberry and hawthorn that we're going to hack through. So I've never started this guy before, but I think the starting process is relatively normal. So we'll just give this a bit of a go. Not that this makes the most compelling story here, You're gonna get my ass cracking this. Gee, that was a lot easier to start than I thought, unlike the old chainsaws that we have. That was easy, so I guess I'll see you in a couple of hours. Not a bad start. We've done one side of the creek today, given it a bit of a clear out, but we're going to have to come back another day because the light's starting to fade. But pretty happy with this progress for today, and these plants that are left here will now have a little bit more of a chance to survive, not having to compete with all the weeds. Oh, buggered. So here, these are some native species, indigenous species to this area that we planted about, I'd say 2 years ago. And you can see how much they're thriving, and it doesn't take much of an effort to put what was once here back in the ground. We've got wilders, we've got silver wattles, we've got some manigums, we've planted poa along here that's not looking too great at the moment. But all these will help create a windbreak and really great habitat for birds. And it kind of gets me thinking a little bit about, if you think about this block of land, it's a degraded bit of land that's been misused, it's been abused, all the indigenous and native species have been removed. And if we don't start putting those plants back in there and returning what was once there, we're never going to repair the land. And I reckon that's a really good metaphor for Australia as a country. Even though I didn't clear all the land and I didn't cut down all the trees, it wasn't me, I wasn't directly responsible for it. I actually have an obligation and an opportunity to help do some of the repair work. And I think that's something that we could really consider in terms of how we work with Indigenous First Nations people to heal this country. Something to think about.